Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we dive into 5 ways to build online trust, visibility, and engagement for your practice. I'm London, Product Marketing Director with Ensora Health, and today we have a special guest, one of our Ensora Marketplace partners. Mario Rios joins us from Therapy Sites and is a seasoned digital marketer uh, with a decade of experience. I'm thrilled to have him join us on this topic because Mario has an impressive track record of assisting thousands of mental health professionals, and his expertise lies in streamlining administrative tasks, crafting digital marketing strategies, unleashing the true potential of social media, and taking practices to the next level. So, thank you so much for being here today, Mario.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. On behalf of both Therapy Sites and myself, we're super excited to be here and be able to present some valuable information to all the practitioners out there. Because let's be honest, this stuff it's hard to keep track of. There's a lot that goes into managing your business, and the whole online aspect of this is very cumbersome for a lot of practitioners out there. So our main mission today is to ultimately go over um, in terms of our agenda on creating an online presence and really establishing an online presence to help grow your practice at various different rates in which you're looking to grow it. But I usually like to start this off by ultimately, what is an online presence? We hear that word a lot, but a lot of people don't necessarily know what that means. And there's a few different factors that go into creating and establishing an online presence. First and foremost, it's the way that the general public perceives your practice. It's the way that people find information regarding your practice. It's a way for you to essentially highlight your practice using various different elements and using the internet as a resource in terms of how people are going to be doing most of their searching when looking for specific resources online. Now, with if done correctly, an online presence can be one of the biggest tools that you utilize in terms of growing your practice using the internet and search engines as a viable resource, using your website and directories as a way to help grow your practice. So, with the presentation today, we're going to go over some of the elements that contribute to a successful online presence and that contribute to allowing you to represent your brand and represent your practice in a way that's going to make sense to a potential client and peers that may also be searching for you. So in the presentation, we're going to go over knowing who you are as a practitioner and what you represent, making sure that you're using your website as a tool and tips to ensure that the website is an appropriate representation of you and your practice, getting found on Google and getting found on Google the right way. So there is a good way to get on Google. There's a bad way to get on Google. So we're going to jump into a little bit of that. Leveraging social media to essentially grow your practice, another element of creating your online presence, and focusing on reputation management. A lot of practitioners spend a lot of time building that online presence and not realizing what the general public's seeing. So we'll get into a little bit of that, which is fantastic. And then at the very end, we'll go over some Q&A as well. So.
And just to mention, the Q&A, you can access that chat at any point through this presentation. It's going to be a button at the bottom of your screen. You can shoot those questions over to our team, and we'll have time to get to a few of those at the end. And if we do not get to all of the questions, we'll make sure to respond over email.
Absolutely. All right, so let's kick this off. So your identity is a key differentiator. So what this essentially means is this is essentially creating what we would call your brand, the way that you want to be represented, not only online but in person when you're dealing with clients face to face, and essentially what they're being represented. Think of this like a commercial for you and your practice and your brand. It's about being authentic. It's representing who you are as a practitioner and utilizing your specific styles. of therapeutic approaches, and allowing you to essentially uh, lean into specializations that you have for your practice. So, given you're working primarily with couples, you want to kind of represent that indicator online, so that you are essentially being recognized and recommended on the various different directories and search engines for your specialties. But it's also keeping things consistent and keeping your brand recognition consistent throughout all these elements of creating your online presence through your social media platforms, ensuring that everything is consistent. You're providing the right services, you're providing the right pricing information, the right addresses, insurances, so on and so forth. But it's also using your websites as a tone, right? Once again, your website is going to be a virtual commercial for you and your practice. It's ultimately the very first impression that a potential client has in making a decision. They may have been directed to you by an insurance panel, sure, but obviously they're going to be, Google searching you to kind of get some background on you as a practitioner, and what they find through those means, through your directories, through your website, through your social media presence, is going to help identify or help give them an appropriate reflection on, to make that decision to reach out, to choose you as someone that can help them with what they're needing. But it's important to kind of embrace your strengths and your accomplishments through all of your directories, through your website, especially on your website, right? As I mentioned, a virtual commercial, this is a way for you to shine. It's a way for you to express who you are as a practitioner, but also identify the reasons that a potential client should consider you as an option. What specialties have you gotten? What recognitions, accolades have you achieved in your career? These are all things that are going to help with a client make a decision. As we all know, there are many options uh, given where you're located, of course. Yeah, some have it easier than others, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of options for a potential client, and the way that we represent ourselves online is going to be a perfect indicator on how approachable you are through your website, and your directories will help them make a decision in reaching out. So section 2 is going to be about making sure your website is clear and easy to navigate. Now, your website is going to be one of the biggest elements in creating your online presence. So in the year 2025, it's almost uncommon or unnatural not to have a website for if you're providing a service or a business to someone. It's almost an expectation at this point. It seems very strange to a natural person, just a regular person that's going online looking for a resource. Perhaps you were a referral from another client, and they're going to look you up and not able to find a website, for you. It kind of throws up a red flag, right? Um, Oddly enough, this is going back to 2015, so we're not going back to the Stone Ages or anything. This is just 10 years ago. Less than half, about 43% of small businesses had an active website for their business. That's not just mental health, but that would be anything, restaurants, small chiropractic offices, etc. That's crazy to think, right? Because now going into the year 2025, as of this past January, it's nearly 90% of small businesses either have a website to represent their brand online, or it's a social media presence. So that just goes to tell you how important a website is at this juncture, because this is where most people are doing their searching. They're using a website as a resource to help them determine on making a decision. So we're going to go over some, kind of tips and tricks on what a website needs to be effective in order to grow your practice online. Some ultimate housekeeping type things would be, mobile responsive website. So having a website that's going to adapt to cell phones. As according to Google, 80% of the people are going to be visiting your website. They're going to be on a device of some kind, right? So going back to 2015, Most people were still browsing on a laptop, still browsing on their desktop computer, especially when you're looking for a resource like mental health or dentist or chiropractor. But now 80% of all searches through Google are done on a cell phone. So we have to ensure that a website is going to adapt seamlessly. Are those buttons located in the right positions? Because if they're not in the right spots, if they're not clicking when you click on them, your client's going somewhere else, right? The most important thing here is to make sure that your website is adapting appropriately to a phone. Um, so to help ease of use, of course. Um, Call to action locations, right? That's equally as important on a cell phone. Where these buttons are located, and there's a lot of case studies that go into this to where are people most likely to respond on a website if they're looking to engage in your services, what colors to make them, yeah, how are they going to adapt on a cell phone or a desktop. These are all things that need to be considered when kind of determining if your website's effective enough online to get the results that you're looking to achieve. Load speeds. At the end of the day, it's great having a ton of bells and whistles on your website, videos, moving pieces, graphics, shooting stars, you name it. It looks good to the eye, but it could have a negative effect on your overall SEO if your load speeds are taking too long in the eyes of Google to load up the information. And then you have to consider you may be working in low income areas or poverty level areas where bandwidth isn't a luxury, where they may be on some slower speeds, and it may be a little bit harder for them to navigate your website if they need to wait for a ton of stuff to load up and upload. It can become a bit of a nuisance. So kind of understand your audience, understand the clients that are going to be looking for your resources. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, HIPAA compliance. Utilizing your website as a tool is fantastic, but let's make sure we're doing it safely. Let's ensure that we're using the website in the way that's intended, but it's also got to be, encrypted and secure. Potential clients leaving information through the website. Where is that information going? Does it just go into one of your regular Gmail emails? I hope not, right? Because that's obviously frowned upon in terms of HIPAA. Are you SSL certified? Is everything encrypted? Are you using HIPAA compliant forms to send and receive information, emails, that whole thing? It's a big element of safely utilizing your website as a tool, of course. And then you have to consider things like ADA compliance, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. I believe there's 7 or 8 states in the U.S. right now where that's a requirement, where you have to be ADA compliant if you're providing a service to somebody. And that's also going to be important. We want to make sure that everyone's able to navigate your website. Visual impairments, hearing impairments, dyslexia, so on and so forth. We have to give everybody the same opportunity to have access to your resources. So using your website as an investment. Long are the days are, websites were considered a set it and forget it type deal, right? Where, hey, you only needed a website, you got it online, it's going to do its own thing. Field of dreams. If you build it, they're going to come, right? Well, boy, let me tell you that doesn't work anymore. There is so much that goes into keeping a well-maintained website, and that's why we do webinars like these. And we want to make it known to all the practitioners out there that if you're actively engaging in new clients, utilizing your website as a tool is going to be one of the biggest elements. But that's going to consist of a lot of maintenance and upkeep. Understand there's usually traditionally not enough hours in the day to handle a lot of the website side of things, but this is going to be one of the most important investments that you have if you're utilizing the internet as a resource. So ideally, conquering Google is going to be the biggest advantage that you have while being online. So some, displayed here are some tips that we want to be able to provide to make that transition, to make it easier to get spotted on Google, to use Google's algorithm to keep your proverbial name in the hat when someone in your area is looking for a mental health practitioner. Obviously, basic information. No need to over customize your website. Nobody's going to your website for glamour shots or headshots or all these great, fantastic videos and graphics. They're just there to get your information. Do you accept their insurance? How much do you cost? How can they contact you? Keep your website updated regularly, blog posts, adding content, keeping up with technology as technology shifts. How often is a new iPhone coming out? Every 4, 5, 6 months. Same thing with technology. There's always something new that we have to adapt to ensure that we're utilizing the website and we're following up to those standards. And we already talked about security on the previous slide, but it's still important, right? Ensuring that everything's SSL certified, mobile responsive. So it's a perfect segue and great transition into getting found on Google the right way. So in this section, we're going to go over another huge element of your online presence, and this is your SEO side of things. Now, SEO stands for search engine optimization. It's the frequency in which Google is going to recommend your practice when someone in your area is looking for your specific services. So we all use it. We all do it on a daily when we're looking for resources or services. Easiest thing to do is to get on Google, Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, insert your favorite your search engine here. But ultimately, that's over 15 billion searches a day, according to Google. So even if 1% of that is dedicated to mental health related resources, that is a tremendous amount of searches that are being dealt in the mental health field. So how you're being recommended by Google is super, super important. And there's so much that goes into their algorithm for your SEO. Most of this that we're going over is establishing your online presence that has a large piece of your SEO, right? So social media presence, website management, um, uh, listings and reputation management, business listings, directories. These are all things that contribute to your score. Google uses almost like a score system when determining rankings for their SEO. There's a lot of elements that go into it. And what we want to be able to use is your website as a resource. A large chunk of your SEO is going to come from obviously you as a brand, how long you've been established, word of mouth, your reputation in terms of reviews, testimonials, things along those lines. But a good chunk of this is also going to come from your website. And how Google gets the information from the website, there's two sections essentially. There's essentially behind this, what I call underneath the hood type stuff or behind the scenes type stuff. This is the foundation that your website's built on. It's the code, it's the backend titles, tags, descriptions. I'll get into a little bit more of those details here in a moment. But the second half of your SEO is content, the actual words that are on your website. So Google will use a combination of those two elements to get the SEO from your website, which is going to constitute for a large majority of how they're recommending your practice. So you have your local directories, your website with your SEO attached to your website, your online reputation and management. All those go into how Google's going to recommend you. So some little tips here is consider using keywords that fit your practice, treated conditions, and areas serviced. Makes no sense in marketing to a state in which you can't see somebody. If you're only licensed in Illinois, we obviously want to highlight marketing yourself locally, right? That just makes the most sense. With that great tool of telecounseling, you're able to see clients state on a statewide level, which is fantastic. But you're always going to have a bread and butter surface area, which is usually attached to wherever your website's indexed. So whatever zip code that you utilize when you initially build your website, that is going to be your indexing area. So that's going to be your local, what I call like your delivery zone, if you're thinking of like ordering food. It's stretched out a little bit more than a traditional delivery zone, but just think of that's where a large majority of your inquiries are going to come from. Using the right appropriate keywords that fit your practice. If you're a marriage and family therapist, you probably don't want to start using keywords about, play therapy or EMDR or psychiatry. You want to keep things relevant to you and your practice. Use the same keywords with your metadata. Now, the metadata is the backend coding. It's going to be a lot of what Google identifies. It's how they identify your practice, what your website's all about. So if you're a chiropractor, your metadata is going to be all chiropractic related. As a mental health practitioner, the metadata should be 100% mental health related. Um, Now with SEO, of course, search engine optimization, it's more of an organic tool. It's not an immediate fix. It's not an immediate thing that you can be on the top of Google day one, right? That's not going to happen. It's very, very hard. And there's a lot of management that goes into your search engine optimization to get you to that top of Google. That's where most people want to end up, right? That should be your ultimate goal as a practice, is to be at those top searches, those first, 5 to 10 results through a Google search are where 70% of those clicks are going to come from. So the main goal and main priority is, what can I do to help myself get to the top of Google, right? To utilize all those tools, to utilize my website, to utilize my listings and reputation management. How do I get to the top, right? And there's some steps to take. We'll go over a few of those steps, of course, but it's more of an organic approach. It's for the long haul. It's not an immediate fix. It's not a situation where I want to focus on SEO so I can have 10 new clients next month. That's not going to happen, right? That's where you would want to consider pay-per-click advertising through both Google and Facebook ads. Different approach, right? It's not SEO oriented, but it is a paid advertisement. When you do a Google search, you probably know what I'm talking about. The very top results that you see first are essentially going to be those paid ads. It'll say ad right next to it, right? So that means a company paid for that placement. Anybody can be there as long as you have the funds, right? That's the most important piece here. Is most of the time the budget isn't going to be a factor in terms of running these ads. So we always encourage our practitioners to focus organic. We want to naturally get you to the top of Google. A, it's going to last a lot longer. B, for the long haul. But no one should have to pay $1,000 a month for a Google ad. It's just not, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, content with purpose, right? So I mentioned the second half of your SEO on your website is going to be far more content related. If anybody's done a Google search since last May of 2024, you'll notice that now at the very top of your screen, there's an AI bot that delivers a response or a result or an answer to your question. It's called AI Overview, right? So when they first launched this, I don't think there was a company in the world that knew how this was going to affect SEO, right? But now we've had just a little bit past a year of data to kind of learn how AI Overview interacts with SEO. And luckily, the good news for everyone with a website or interested in a website is it's all there to help. It doesn't compete with your current SEO. The disadvantage is it doesn't necessarily help your SEO tremendously. But what it does is that AI overview is taking information from websites to be able to provide a result. Thus, providing more information on your website gives them more reasons to recommend your website because they're providing information to a searcher from your website, right? I hope that makes sense. So what we want to be able to do is provide more information to Google on a more consistent basis so that that AI bot gets that information and now keeps your name in the hat for a potential result to one of those questions. So that in conjunction with your SEO are the two big elements that you're going to be able to utilize to help grow your SEO rankings, to help grow your online presence. Now, I know that's a lot easier said than done. Writing content is probably one of the hardest parts about having a website, right? I believe it or not, anybody on the planet can build a website, right? You can watch enough YouTube videos, you can read enough how-to books. That's the easy part. And that, trust me, I know a lot of practitioners struggle with even that part. But the hard part is managing it. It's being able to keep up with all the technologies. It's keeping up with the trends, Google's algorithm. That's the hard part. The content is the hard part. So the bots and SEO, so Google itself, it's an old school term some of you may be familiar with. It's called a web crawl. So every 60 to 90 days, they're going to be sending bots to your website to crawl and look for new information. So the whole point here is to be able to provide Google with more information. Doesn't even need to be on a monthly basis. It can be on a quarterly basis. As long as we're providing new information for Google, it's appropriate. However, some things to consider is the content that you're providing, it has to be relevant to a potential client of yours. It has to be information that's going to make sense to someone that's going to be interested in your services, right? Don't just provide content to provide content and just say, hey, I updated my website. Google's going to love that. Great. That's not going to work either. We have to make sure we're attracting the right types of client. Otherwise, in the industry, we call that fluff. We're just bringing a ton of traffic to your website, but nobody's engaging. At the end of the day, we want to make sure we're helping to attract your ideal client. So the content that we need to provide is content that's going to be relevant to you and your practice. Obviously, if you're using bots or you're using Chat AI, Chat GPT to provide information or content to your website, you have to make sure that you verify where that information is coming from. If you remember a couple years back, Chat GPT was a huge entity, right? It was everywhere. That's all you heard about was Chat GPT, Chat GPT. Then it kind of disappeared for a little bit. Well, the reason being is a lot of people are finding themselves in hot water because they were just providing willy-nilly information on their website, just assuming that everything was accurate, great, grand, and wonderful, when in fact it wasn't, right? There were a lot of inconsistencies, there was a lot of false information. So you always want to double check and verify where that information is coming from. Always prioritize the quality of the content. And as I go through this, I'm just going to provide a couple different examples of some do's and don'ts. Feel free to read through those as I kind of go through this. Now, also with your content, what we would traditionally recommend with SEO is you want to provide content on specific pages. A couple years back, there was a big trend going on like, hey, all you need is a landing page, just one page of information, so a couple bullet points, get your pricing on there. That's all you need, right? That's all Google's looking for now. You don't need content anymore. Well, thankfully, last year, Google put a nix to that, right, when they started integrating the AI overview. So now it's back to being able to provide information. But if we can provide information on a more consistent basis, we traditionally would recommend separating those with specific pages. So if you have 4 or 5 bread and butter services, we want you to be able to utilize those services on different pages so that we can provide adequate content. Another easy way to provide content to your website, if you're not really good with providing content for the website, or you're not, you already have a ton of information on the website and you don't want it to be too cluttered, is by blogging, right? Being able to provide a blog to your website on a quarterly basis even still gets indexed through Google. It still gets recognized through Google, so it still counts. 10, 15 years ago, blogging was a huge thing. Once again, it was the rave. It was the trend at that time. It's what everybody was doing for their website. Then that also disappeared for a while. Now blogging's making a comeback. Now it's a little bit, it's more people want to do more vlogging type styles, right? With social media influence and things along those lines, which is still fantastic. But we still need that copy. We still need those words on the website in order to make it count. All right, so moving on from SEO and your website to more of leveraging social media to maximize your online presence. So this is another key element, and this used to be a far distant fifth, right? If I had to put in order of importance, I think social media would have been when I started here at Therapy Sites 8 years ago. 20% of websites, had consistent interaction through social media. Now it's becoming more of a vital entity. It's becoming far more of a resource and far more impactful. So 1 billion active users a month through Facebook, and about 500 million through Instagram on a monthly basis. So once again, even if a percentage of those are looking for mental health related resources, most notably through Facebook, that is still thousands and thousands of people looking for mental health related resources. And there are a tremendous amount of resources and groups through Facebook that are mental health related, domestic violence groups, ADHD groups. There's, thousands of different groups and opportunities for resources and practices. And, it's a 50-50 split usually. on most practitioners' stance with using social media as a resource. But keep in mind, this is a complete separation from anything personal. We always encourage creating a business account for your social media platform and strictly use it for the practice. No personal interactions, no, I wouldn't even encourage utilizing, direct responses through the business page. What I would traditionally recommend for most of our practitioners is just direct people to your website, right? The easiest thing to do is have them contact you through the website. The last thing you want to do is to respond or retort to someone being negative, or respond and retort to a discussion that shouldn't be made public. It's an open forum, right? That's where a lot of practitioners are a bit hesitant, but it's still such a vital tool that it's worth the risk, right? So you need to tell your stories practice through your social media platform, share your background and why you became a therapist. People are drawn to this, right? If it looks like it's actually a maintained social media account that you take pride in, and that you establish that brand through, right? Make sure that the social media account looks like your website, it looks like your directories, you use the same image or at least the same logo, same color scheme throughout. It builds authenticity. It builds that trust. People utilize it as more of a trusted resource. Um, Using social media to target is also an option, right? There are paid Facebook advertising that you can do. Now, what I would traditionally recommend using Facebook is more of an informative tool, right? So most of your posts and blogs should be more topic oriented, service oriented, in your field oriented, but still have fun with it. Do a Friday meme, or a funny gift, really mental related joke. Be lively about it. Not everything has to be so dramatic, and people love that. Right? If we can keep it engaging, open, and active, but you also have to be consistent with your social media. It's very a bad idea to get the gumption to create. Yes, I will do this. I'll have my grandkids, I'll have my kids create the page for me. This is going to be fantastic. And then you post to it once, and then you don't touch it again for 9 months. What do you think that looks like to the general public? Right? They're probably guessing you're out of business, or something happened here or something at that point, right? So we need to be consistent. If you're gonna take the approach of utilizing social media as a tool, it's a bit of a work, right? There's a lot that goes into maintaining it, but being able to provide some valid content for them, some important resources that you feel like your clients are going to find beneficial, can go a very long way. All right. So the last piece of your online presence is going to be focused on your reputation management. Now, a rep this is kind of another gray area for a lot of practitioners, but and I hear this quite often. But reputation, your online perception, is going to make or break your practice. So 84% of people trust an online review as much as a recommendation from a friend. So think of it this way: if you hurt your back, right, or you chipped a tooth, and you just moved to a new area and you're exploring new options for a new dentist or a new chiropractor, and you find one that you think you like, and you go to look them up. Maybe the insurance panel directed you some way. You go to look them up, and they have a 10 one-star reviews. They have a website that hasn't been touched since 1990. They have a bunch of negative annotations through the website, or excuse me, through Bing and Yahoo and Healthgrades and Doctor.com and CareShare. And they're not paying attention to their online presence. If I had to guess, you're probably going to go to a different dentist, right? You're going to go to a different chiropractor. The way that the general public perceives you goes a long way. And 10 years ago, it was a faux pas, right? We can't do that. HIPAA says I can't ask for reviews, I can't endorse testimonials, I can't do, I can't really engage in any of this stuff. Well, things have definitely changed. So let me be the one to tell you. Now, obviously, focus on your state's regulations and restrictions, of course. I don't want to provide you some information that may be counterintuitive to your specific regulations, but Uh, for the most part, mental health professionals are now able to engage in a testimonial of a graduated client as long as names aren't being utilized. You can utilize initials. Testimonials, same concept, being able to utilize a testimonial, very effective. But guess what? It's a darned if you do, darned if you don't situation. If you want to be on Google and you want to get more clients, you need a Google My Business profile, which we'll go to here in a couple of moments. But that is a place where someone can, potentially leave a review, whether you're endorsing it or not. So wouldn't you rather have control over that? Wouldn't you rather ensure that the people that are finding your Google My Business profile are seeing 30 positive interactions instead of those two bad ones because you didn't take Aetna insurance and your client's super mad about it? It's important to stay on top of this. And if you still, don't feel comfortable endorsing reviews or testimonials from graduated out clients, or anonymity with names, just initials with names, and so on and so forth, there are still things that you can do, right? If you've worked with a peer, if you've worked with a supervisor, with other groups or organizations, have them write a review or testimonial through, those various resources, WebMD, Google, Bing, Facebook, so on and so forth. The more positive interaction that we can have, the more five-star interactions, the more that we can get that positive information out into the general public, that is going to tremendously help. That's over 20% of your SEO score is those various directories. Psychology Today, they don't really have a rating system on there, but it's still important to be listed. CareShare, Doctor.com, WebMD, Vitals, Health Grades, um, anywhere that you can have a directory. So your Google My Business profile is going to be one of the biggest tools that you have in terms of being able to capture reviews, testimonials. It's where most people go. I would say this or Yelp are probably going to be the two biggest resources for reviews, followed, thirdly by Facebook. But here, we kind of wanted to show you some little tips and tricks on how to, obtain your Google My Business profile. People think it's a huge, rigorous, long process. Not the case at all. It shouldn't take you more than a day to be able to kickstart that process and have your business verified by Google within a week, which is fantastic. Same thing with your directories. Anywhere that you are currently affiliated, anywhere that you're represented, anywhere that you've had a partnership, these are all places that need to represent you and then need to represent a listing for you. Now, there's also, you have those other services like Headway and Rula and Grow Therapy and so on and so forth. There's a gazillion of them out there at this point. But those are all directory listings. Those are all places where people can go to get information about you and your practice and all contribute to your online reputation and helping with your overall SEO. So the impact on local search rankings, of course, I went over it a little bit here. So 10% of Google's search algorithm criteria comes from Google, Yelp, and then a couple of the other like third-party reviews. The other 10% are going to come from the rest of your directories. So the way that the general public gets those reviews those, it's super important because that's one of the first things that Google's going to be looking at. Who are they going to recommend first? Someone that's going to be 4 to 5 stars or someone that has a 2-star rating? Just kind of makes sense, right? And this is the ideal way to represent your brand, right? Everyone wants to be located in that map section of Google. That is, where most people go when they're doing their searching as well. I wanted something within a couple miles of my house. I don't want to drive too far. They're going to use that map section, and that's where they're going to show you the practices based on their online reputation. So some more do's and don'ts for encouraging reviews. It's a vital step in terms of organically getting not only fully engaged and graduated clients to participate in just throwing a great experience out to the general public, but ask appropriately, right? Don't ever offer incentives in exchange for a positive review. not just in the mental health field, but just in general, right? That's just not a very I'm sure you've been to a dentist who's like, hey, you leave us a review and you'll get, a free tube of toothpaste or whatever the case may be. Do you ask for clients who've had a positive experience? Let them know it means a lot to you and your practice. If they had a great time, to go ahead and not use any direct way for them to be identified as a particular client. Initials are usually sufficient. But monitor. There's ways to monitor what people are saying about your practice. There's tools out there that allow you to monitor your reputation. So anytime someone does mention your practice or you as a practitioner, you get notified. And that's super important. Why spend all this time and money and resources on your online presence if the last thing that they see is just terrible reviews, right? It just doesn't make sense. Your money wasn't well spent. You're not using this as an investment. 70% of clients find that a provider cares more about them if the provider responds to the review, regardless if the review is positive or negative. I agree with this, but not directly, right? So ultimately, what if you are going to review, which is traditionally in the mental health field a no-no, because then you're identifying them as a client, but you usually want to use a canned response, whether it's positive or negative. Hey, thank you for letting the office know. Please contact us at this phone number. We'll be more than happy to assist you. Whether it be be very neutral, whether it be a positive or negative review. We want to be able to show that you're responding to it, that you see it, right? That provides engagement, that instills a level of confidence. But don't ever respond to a negative review. Don't ever identify somebody as a client or an old client. You guys all know this. It's all part of the HIPAA regulations. But there's a lot of steps that we can take to still be able to utilize Google as a tool, to be able to utilize reviews as a tool. And that's the most important element, right? Is to make sure you're doing it the right way. Hey, that's kind of the biggest piece of this is there are right ways and wrong ways to use Google as a resource. So obviously, we always want to do everything by the book to keep the practice out of hot water. So those are the 5 areas that help establish your online presence. Knowing who you are and representing yourself in a unique way, right? What is it unique about you and your practice? What are your specialties? Who are you? What do you do? Who do you help? Those are all key factors in helping determining a potential client making a decision. Be authentic. Use your website, use your online presence as an appropriate representation of you and your practice. You same style, same approach, same tones. The way that you would speak to a client through your website should be the way that you would speak to a client in person directly. Easy ways to accomplish this is images of your office, your surrounding area. Utilize your local scene as an advantage. If you're near the ocean, obviously, utilize that as an advantage. You're in the city, same concept, but be who you are. Not all websites have to be stacked rocks and people holding hands and crying and hugging. It doesn't have to be that. This is all about you. Express your practice in the way that you want it to be expressed. It's yours to do what you want to represent you and your brand. Make sure your website is clear and concise. Keep it simple but informative. Mobile responsive, fast loading, adding content. Content is king. I think that's going to be a thing for the rest of eternity when it comes to SEO and using your website as a tool is providing more content. Get found on Google the right way. Identifying the appropriate keywords and where you want to target. SEO related content. Back-end coding, alt tags, titles, descriptions, backlinks. Linking your website everywhere. Creating QR codes to make it easy for people to get to your website. Make sure your website's in your email signature, business cards, anywhere that you're able to represent your practice. All your directories should have a direct link to your website. Psychology Today, Alma, anywhere that you're going to have a directory that is going to represent you as a practitioner or your practice. Ensure that it's two-way communication straight to your website. It's the easiest way to help your SEO is self-driving your own traffic. Google loves to see that. It shows that your website's active and engaging. Leveraging social media. Tell your practice's story, right? It's an easy way for someone that is not on Google that's looking for mental health related resources to find your practice. Target specific patient segments. Figure out who you want to utilize, and who you want to target with your social media topics, who you want to help attract, and who you want to help. Creating consistent content, right? Reputation management. 84% of people rely on reviews when making a decision. Make sure you're claiming your Google My Business profile, attaching yourself to all the appropriate directories, ensuring that your website's being attached as well. Encouraging reviews and testimonials, but doing it the right way. Making sure you're adhering to your HIPAA rules and regulations, your specific state rules and regulations for your licensing, of course. So I know I just went over a ton of stuff, and I wish I could spend more and more time going over this into far more detail, because I'm sure you guys have plenty of questions on this, and there's a lot that goes into this stuff, and it's impossible to manage on your own while trying to run a practice and manage family life. And the last thing somebody wants to do is hop on their computer and mess around with their website for an hour or two, not having any idea what they're doing, right? So a lot of practitioners just forget this. They're like, oh, I don't need a website. I'll just do this some other way, right? They're at a significant disadvantage because they're daunted. They're in a position where this seems like a huge chore, something that they're going to have to do a lot of research on and try to tackle this all on their own. But rest assured, there are an ample amount of resources and opportunities that can help take this off your shoulders. So with that being said, therapy sites, we're a website and digital marketing company that's 100% tailored to your craft. So we build and manage websites, but our main goal here is twofold: to take this work off of your shoulders so that you do not have to focus on these elements. That is our job. We want to be able to use your website as a tool to help grow your online presence. So if you're in a position where you currently have an active website, haven't touched it in a couple years, now looking to kind of re-engage and start using your website as a tool, we have a pretty awesome promotion that I'll get into in a second. And maybe you're a practitioner that is straight out of supervision hours, or you're a part of a group and you're transitioning out to manage your own practice for the very first time. It's a lot of tackling. There's a lot of things that go into this right out of the gate. Let us at least help take this part off of your shoulders. So, as a special offer from Therapy Sites as part of our partnership with Insora Health, which we are very, very thankful for, anybody that is interested in potentially learning more about our services, or even just have more basic questions on the presentation itself, I'll be more than happy to reach out directly. That is my direct line at the bottom of the screen, 630-427-6941. You can also scan the QR code. But anybody that may be interested in utilizing Therapy Sites to kind of help take this off their shoulders, we have an awesome promo where your first 2 months of any website service is free. So free stuff is fantastic, especially if you're just starting off. All that capital goes away really quick, I know. But as an added bonus, anybody that is interested in getting started, you also receive a $100 gift card, which is hey, I think it might be Amazon. Yeah, so Amazon, who doesn't want an extra $100 with Amazon? So once again, my name is Mario with Therapy Sites. Phone number on the bottom, 630-427-6941. And then also, this is sponsored by WebMD, one of our partners. So clients on WebMD are searching for mental health professionals. With over 16 million visitors, WebMD offers unmatched visibility and empowers mental health professionals to reach a ready-to-book client audience. So go ahead and scan the QR code if you are interested in obtaining a free WebMD profile. That's right, free. It will not cost you anything as long as you're using that QR code on the bottom, and it will prompt you to take the next steps to create your WebMD profile. So that is my end of the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and pass this back over to London to open it up for a quick Q&A session in case you guys had any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mario. And also for everyone on the call, those resources, the links are also in the resource section. So if you didn't have a chance to scan that, check those out now in the resource section. So we do have time for a few questions. So pulling that up, I see the first one is, how often should I update my website content to stay relevant on Google?
Yeah, great question. So this will tend to vary. On average, I would say a minimum of once a quarter. So Google's algorithm and their bots will index your website traditionally every 60 to 90 days. Now, there's no exact number to this. Google just kind of does what Google does whenever they want. So there's no exact time frame, but you'll be safe every 60 to 90 days if you're providing new information to your website. Your website will then be crawled, and all that new information will be in their database. So when someone may be looking for a resource that you have an answer to on your website, thus end result, your website will be recommended by that AI bot. So that is now, ideally, once a month is probably going to be the most effective, but once a quarter should be sufficient for Google's needs.
I love how that's realistic. I know sometimes it can be intimidating as you might see recommendations on social media saying having to post or redo content on a daily basis multiple times a day, which can probably leave a therapist saying, I'm not even going to touch this. So I love how you're providing some realistic expectations and support there.
It's nearly impossible to ask a full time practitioner to juggle everything, especially if they're doing everything on their own, and to confidently say yes, update your website once a week. That's it's just not likely to happen, and it's not that much of an added bonus to do it once a week than it would be once a month or once a quarter. So it'd be far more than sufficient.
That's perfect. Okay, so the next question I'm seeing here is are there any social media platforms that are better suited for therapy practices?
Yeah, so I would say the two that stand out the most, first and foremost, you'll have Facebook. That's probably going to be the largest resource in terms of mental health related searches and topics um, by probably a country mile, to be honest. There are a ton of resources through Facebook that allow for groups to be established, whether it be mental health related groups. Yeah, I mentioned a couple earlier. Facebook and then Instagram would probably be the next closest. Um, it's all done by Meta. So what's really neat about Facebook and Instagram is you can combine them together. So if you're only posting to Facebook, I would still encourage you to create an Instagram account because you can sync them up. So every time that you post to your Facebook page, it will post to your Instagram profile as well. So if anybody is strictly on Instagram and not on Facebook, they still may have an opportunity to review your resources and thus, getting acclimated to your practice through Instagram. The other ones, Twitter or X is now used to be far more common, several years back than it is now in terms of mental health related resources. But a lot of practitioners want to stay away from X and Twitter for various different reasons. Most notably, it's too open of a forum, right? It's too easy for people to just kind of get back at you and information through there. And then TikTok, yeah, definitely not an option for viable mental health related resources. Most of TikTok is going to be through paid advertising. Now, if you want to have fun, by all means, create a TikTok account. Do something goofy with the practice. Be lively. Be engaging with a younger audience. That's not going to hurt you in any regard, of course. But most people aren't going to go to TikTok for a mental health related resource, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely goes back to what you were saying earlier of being authentic. If that's something you're trying to appeal to that audience and you're offering care to that segment, it might make sense. But if it feels too forced, then not the right space.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have time for one more question. I see a few variations of this one, but are there any affordable tools and services for small practices to manage their online presence?
Oh, absolutely. Not just talking about resources that Therapy Sites provides, right? There are an ample amount of tools and resources that you'll have access to. There's services called reputation and review guards, right? So if you're interested you have an online presence, you have a website, you have a Google profile, but you just don't have the wherewithal to kind of keep track and manage everything. There are companies out there that can do that for you, that can essentially keep track of your all your online listings and reputation management. So anywhere that you have an active listing in terms of an address represented, phone number, that it's consistent throughout the entire internet. There are many of options, many companies out there that assist with what they would call uh, online listings and review management. There are many different resources in terms of website building and website management. Keeping cost in mind, you have services like Wix, GoDaddy, Squarespace. There's even some smaller ones out there that allow you to build a website to help grow your practice. Just keep in mind with those types of services, it's going to be a lot more DIY, right? But you can always scout local area for maybe a designer, someone that is builds websites for a living to at least get you something online, because something will be better than nothing. At the end of the day, it's just going to depend on the level of marketing that you're familiar with, how what your tech level looks like. And I know a lot of the practitioners I talk to will no offense to anyone, be lucky to get logged into their emails, let alone trying to figure out how to customize and build a website, right? It's just not an easy thing to do. So, in terms of website management, absolutely. In terms of social media interactions and presence, you don't even need to spend anything. I'm sure you have a grandkid around this age, or a child, or a niece or nephew, or a neighbor that is super familiar with these things. There are a lot of resources out there that can assist you with managing a social media presence and making sure that you're doing it safely as well. Um, and then if you have a practice online, if you have a Google My Business page, you probably get a ton of emails throughout the month or year on resources for like SEO, hey, how to get you to the top of Google. So there's a lot of different marketing companies out there that will employ their services to try to get you with them to grow your online presence and use like Google as a resource. With a lot of those, though, we do ask you to be very careful. A lot of them claim to be a representative from Google. So there's a lot of spam stuff out there that you do have to be able to filter out. If you're always unsure, just don't be afraid to ask somebody else, a peer, supervisor, that sort of thing, to make sure that it's a legit, credible resource. But then, of course, with services like therapy sites, where we try to provide you the full umbrella, everything that you need, kind of all in one on a budget-friendly plan. But yeah, there are ample amount of opportunities and resources out there to help grow a small practice, as 70% of the practitioners I work with on a daily basis, either a solo practitioner or a group less than five, right? That other 30% might be larger groups, whatever the case may be. But most of the practitioners are in this, you're all in the same boat, right? You're all trying to gain the same advantage using your website with the same budget in mind. So it's hard to do, but there are some options out there for sure.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And as someone who does tons of DIY home projects, I think knowing that it might seem cheaper at first, you're like, okay, I can handle this, I can knock it out myself. But sometimes getting some help is the way to go. It ends up being faster, cheaper in the long run, and so much less of a headache.
Absolutely. I used to change my own oil in my truck in my early 20s. And then, you know what? Now I think I can also go to Jiffy Lube and have them do it in 20 minutes and be about my day. I'm going to do that 9 times out of 10, usually. So, absolutely. It's Is your time worth trying to piece this all out and doing it yourself? Probably not, right? There are better things that most practitioners have to do than, once again, sitting on their computer an extra hour a day, an extra 2 hours a day, to be able to try to figure all this out, when there are people out there that do it for a living just a little bit easier.
Yeah, exactly. Well, with that, I know that we're at time, so I just want to say thank you so much, Mario, for your time and insight today, and thank you to everyone joining us. Again, do not forget to check out the resources section. We have some special offers going on, so you really don't want to miss out on those. And with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and we hope to see you all in a future webinar.
Yes, thank you again, everybody. We greatly appreciate it on behalf of both Therapy Sites and myself. It was an honor and a privilege to be able to present. Any one off questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. It'll be more than my pleasure to answer even some of the most simple questions out there. Nothing's too simple for me. We'll make sure we take care of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.